Sustainable habits for leadership development. Now, we're going to be talking of those habits which are a must for leaders and how these habits can be maintained, and more importantly, how can they be incorporated in daily life. The first thing to remember is called the ice cube experiment. If you start melting an ice cube, it melts, but after some time. Till the time it begins melting, you can't see any difference in it. And that is exactly what happens in a habit change. You will feel that the habit is just not changing. It'll be like a plateau, but one fine day, this very habit will become changed. It's called the tipping effect. And after that, it becomes a well established habit. So, rule number one, if you need to change habits of leaders and their followers, wait for some time from when you begin implementing the change. The second factor we talk of is when we need to change our habits, we don't need to change the habits only. We need to change our identity. For example, I did a workshop today and asked people whether they thought they were leaders. They said, I think so, or I think I will be. So they were talking in the future. If that be the case, if we don't see ourselves as leaders, then we will not be leaders. So the idea is to have an identity change. And how can you have an identity change? When you start behaving like a leader. Very closely associated with this is the Amy Cuddy principle of, well, she says, fake it till you make it. My understanding of it is follow the principles till they become ingrained as a part of your personality. So if you're fearful, keep on behaving courageous till courage becomes a part of your personality. That is the second principle I'm using for habit change. Third is the Q principle. Now, in the Q principle, you look for external cues in your environment which tell you that your habit needs to change. For example, you speak out aloud that on so and so date, I'm going to start my exercise regime. You give a specific date. Along with the specific date, you give a place and a time. With that, you are bound to follow that regime much more faithfully than if you say generically, I plan to start exercising someday. Similarly, leaders, when you want to incorporate a change in your leadership style, say from so and so time and so place, I will change my leadership style from autocratic to democratic or laissez faire. That's principle number 3. 4 is have visual cues in your environment. What does that mean? If you want to be a leader of good standing and you want calmness to be your hallmark, then put a visual cue in your environment like a statue of the Buddha. That will remind you that you need to be calm if you want to be a perfect or a near perfect leader. Something you want to improvise your P&L account. Have the P&L account visible to you the moment you enter your office, and you can look down upon expense cutting. Anything of this kind can be factually utilized. Then we have something which is called the pleasure principle. The pleasure principle is based on the dopamine effect, in which an experiment was done on rats. They were given dopamine. The moment they got this dopamine, their behavior which was there just prior to the giving of the dopamine was, repeated almost 800 times per hour. This was fascinating and is translated to the human world because humans also repeat their behavior in anticipation of getting a reward. Not only when they get a reward actually, but in anticipation of getting a reward. To sum up, have expectations for your habit change to come after a plateau or after a no change period. 2. To have behavior change, have an identity change. 3. Have cues in the environment which will help you change your habits. 4. Have visual cues which will be utilitarian for you and which will give you a hint that you need to become a different kind of leader or you need to follow a different kind of methodology. And last but not the least, pair a pleasurable thing with the results you want to achieve. For this, I'll give you an example, which is called the ABC principle. The American Broadcasting Corporation, what they did was they wanted to popularize three shows. One was Grey's Anatomy, and there were two more shows. So they started pairing these shows every Thursday with the visual ideas of having a relaxing glass of wine and popcorn and sitting back and watching these shows. Soon their TRP ratings went up tremendously. So it is proven that if you use psychological principles, you can have sustainable habits for leadership development. This was part one of my presentation on leadership development sustainable habits. Please subscribe to my channel to see the balance features. Thank you.